Welcome to the MEFA podcast, everyone. My name is Jonathan Hughes.
And I'm Julie Shields-Rutyna.
And as always, we have a great show for you today. We're welcoming back to the show Suffolk University's Director of Veterans Upward Bound, Nick Charrette. We had a wide-ranging conversation, and it's always nice to have him on. And it's sort of timely in a way, it being the end of May and close to Memorial Day, to have somebody from the military on. But also, this being the end of May, we're close to 529 Day, which is something that we like to celebrate all the time. And we have done 529 day shows in years past about the U Fund. But this year we're going to do something a little bit different, right, Julie?
We are, yeah. We definitely wanted to highlight 529 Day, but as you've said, we've done 529 shows and we have another 529 plan, 529A. What are we going to talk about, with our ABLE plan? And so this show is part of that answer. So here on the show, first time on the podcast, is MEFA's Community Outreach Manager for the Attainable Program, Adam Hartwell. So Adam, welcome to the MEFA podcast.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So I guess just to start, can you tell us a little about your professional background and how you came to be here at MEFA working on the Attainable Program?
It'd be my pleasure. I spent about the last 20 years or so in direct service. I had the pleasure of working in the school system, in direct support in the community. I did autism community skills instruction. I ran a rehabilitation classroom. I ran residential programs. And I spent 12 years working in employment services, including winning a national award. So my entire history has been generally working in a position of advocacy and assistance across the spectrum. And as such, I was a firsthand witness to the challenges that exist with finances for individuals with disabilities, particularly those who are receiving benefits. And so when ABLE was announced in 2014, I got extremely excited. When ABLE became administered in 2017, I started waving the flag. And I had the great pleasure shortly thereafter of meeting MEFA's own Mary Rubinis, who was in my role at the time. And we built a relationship of trying to make sure that we were having people be educated about ABLE over the years. And it is now my pleasure to be in that role myself.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. And, speaking of ABLE programs, I wonder if you could just take people through the basics of the ABLE program.
Right. ABLE is an interesting program. It is Section 529A of the tax code, which was signed in 2014. ABLE is the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. Each state got to select how they were going to administer it and give it its own name. So here in Massachusetts, we call it Attainable. The point of ABLE is they are investment accounts that do not get taxed on their growth and provide an opportunity as funds that are put into an ABLE account are not counted as assets against the SSI's limit. In general, SSI has about a $2,000 limit for how many assets you can have, and there's a different limit that reflects that in how much income you can earn per year. And what this does, because that number hasn't been adjusted since the early 80s, is in order to try to keep up with that low a number, people are in a realm of enforced poverty. They cannot save money for medical appointments. They cannot save money for transportation. They cannot save money for first-class security. They can't essentially save money for anything that would allow them to progress in their independence. And ABLE, it provides a tool to assist in that process.
And, from your prior experience and your experience since you've been at MEFA, what do you see as the most pressing needs that we can help address with Attainable and all of our outreach?
Because ABLE is such a useful tool across a wide variety of areas, there are a lot of different zones in which I think that there are pressing need. One of the big ones being there is a motivation, a feeling that ABLE only applies to people with developmental disability, but ABLE actually applies to anyone who has anything that meets the functional limitations categories under the Social Security Administration. So that means long-term cancer recovery. That means significant mental health challenges. That means CPTSD. That means, particularly for veterans, because ABLE does work alongside VA benefits very well. So there are all these people who could be utilizing this program, this tool that might be able to help them, that are not currently aware of it. Additionally, because I don't want to downplay the fact that there are a significant number of people with developmental disabilities who could also benefit from this program, it provides an opportunity for independence. It provides an opportunity to save funds, to be able to save for a car so you can get a better job. You can use Able to pay for education so that you can raise yourself up in that way. You can use Able to cover your bills so that you'll be able to not be so worried about trying to work against the edge. And it also means that we have a thing in disability services called spend downs, where when someone is scared of losing their benefits because they have too many assets, they spend money on something they don't need. Able provides a way to not have to do that anymore.
I was wondering if you could talk about, some of the ways that we can reach people that we haven't done yet.
MEFA's been doing a fantastic job of trying to get the information out there, and we will continue to work on that as a team, as a process. We are attending every transition resource fair that we can possibly attend. We go to community gatherings, and we set up tables at large scale town events and what have you. We also have a very strong social media presence, and we write blogs, and we have we create webinars, and we create publicly available webinars, and we're also starting to set up some regular monthly conversations to allow people to interact with us. We also have a very strong relationship that is only growing over time with stakeholders and agencies and state services throughout the state, in order to try and build that knowledge, and also to try and overcome the fear that tends to exist when people are talking about something that might impact their finances. So we are, trying to make sure that that information is as widely available as possible, and that will be a continuous effort for us.
Can you talk about some of the developments in the program? Any of the changes at the national level in terms of policy, or anything else that's going to make a difference in people's lives?
Well, absolutely. One of the wonderful things about the ABLE Act and the program is that it has only made forward progress over the years of its existence. It's still a fairly new program, so frankly, ABLE itself just coming into the world is a wonderful step forward. But additionally, just looking at like the past year, if we look at you know, starting in like November, we were able to add rep payees, which is a Social Security Administration designation. It used to mean that you were a person who can control Social Security income and what that could be used for. Rep payees are now allowed to open ABLE accounts on behalf of the people they serve. As of January 1, the numbers for how much you can deposit into an Attainable account went up again. So now it is $17,000 per year if you're not working, with an additional $13,590 if you are working. Last year it was $16,000. It was $1,000 less. We also passed just a couple months ago the ABLE Age Adjustment Act. Under the current guidelines for ABLE, a person is eligible to set up one of these accounts if they have some sort of documentation that can state that they received their diagnosis before the age of 26. So you can be 50 now, and if your doctor says, you've definitely had this since birth, you are eligible for an Attainable account. But if you got a traumatic brain injury at 30, you wouldn't be eligible for an Attainable account right now. However, as of January 1st of 2026, that age of eligibility will go up to age 46. This program keeps on increasing in both those who are eligible to utilize it and also what can be done with it. It's extremely exciting that we have official confirmation that you can use ABLE alongside housing subsidies. You can use ABLE to pay for assistive technology. You can use ABLE to pay for transportation, which means you can use, and that doesn't just mean a car, that also means public transportation services. That means Uber, anything that gets you from here to there. You can use it to pay for college if you want to raise yourself up in that way, or a trade school, or any other type of education or training. And also you can use it to pay for one-on-one services. And we have, again, there's a thought when I say one-on-one services that we're thinking skill instruction, somebody walking around with you and helping you out in your day-to-day life. But in this case, it also means your attorney, your accountant, anyone who is providing you with the ability to have better understanding and control of your life. ABLE is a truly, truly wonderful program as far as its ability to assist people in moving forward.
That's fantastic. All great news. And to bring it back to 529 Day, can you talk about some of the ways in which traditional 529 plans overlap with ABLE plans?
ABLE was kind of built on the skeleton that is 529. That's why it's 529A. 529, as we know, is the funds that go into a 529 account are used for qualified educational expenses. The money that goes into a 529A or Attainable or ABLE account can be used for qualified disability expenses. They reflect each other in the ways that a lot of times the way that taxes are worked on them, they say they are both tax advantaged accounts. For existence, if you put money into because these are investment accounts, if you put it into a 529A, the growth on the account from the investment will not be taxed as income, as long as that money is being utilized for those qualified disability account expenses, which is a very, very broad definition. Additionally, 529 and 529A can interact with each other in some really beautiful ways, including if you already had a 529 account set up, you can roll that money into a 529A without fees. Because I've decided I don't think college is going to be for me, but I do think that I'm going to want to be able to use this money for other things. So you can roll the money from a 529 into a 529A.
Well, it's very exciting to see the ABLE program grow, as you said, in all the ways in which it has done and the expansion. And it's very exciting to have you here to talk about it on the podcast, and hopefully you'll be back soon to do it. Now it is time for the MEFA Mailbag, and these are questions that have come into us over the past weeks and have been answered by our college planning team. So remember, if you have any questions, you can email us at collegeplanning@mefa.org, or you can call us at 800-449-MEFA, or you can also reach us over social media on Facebook, that's MEFA MA, on Twitter at MEFA Tweets, and on Instagram, MEFA_MA. So today's question comes to us from a customer who writes, how does financial aid come into play when applying early decision? Can you decline acceptance from a school that you apply to early decision if you get more aid from another school? So Julie, a nice meaty question for you to answer today.
It is. That one has a number of layers. So I'm going to step back. I guess I'll quickly answer it and say no. But now I'll step back and explain. So what early decision is. So early decision is a very specific admissions process where it's not just like early action, where you have an earlier deadline and you apply earlier and you find out your decision earlier. It's different. It's really a binding agreement. If you are applying to a college early decision, essentially what you're saying to that college is, if you admit me, I will come. And so to do that, a number of things I would say should be in place for you, the student, and your family. And one of those is that you really want to make sure that far and away, this is your top choice. You want to go there much more than any of your other choices. Because essentially, not only are you saying, yes, I will attend, you're also saying, if you admit me, I will withdraw all of my other applications. And so that means you will never know where else you were admitted, and you will not receive any financial aid offers from any of those other places either. You're not going to know that. So you need to make this decision knowing that you could be foregoing a higher financial aid offer from another institution. And sometimes I will say to families, you have to go into that decision knowing another college could give you $20,000 more. I mean, we see situations like that, but that can't matter to you. You have to know that this is where I want to go and it's affordable for our family. So how can you know if it's affordable for your family?
Gonna be my question.
Yeah. Well, all colleges have something called a net price calculator on their websites. I would say absolutely use that net price calculator. And in fact, although it will just be an estimate that you'll receive of the type of financial aid that you could receive, colleges that have early decision programs want that net price calculator to match pretty closely to the methodology that they are going to use. So it should be a fairly good estimate of what you will receive as a family for a financial aid offer. And if that offer seems reasonable and affordable to you as a family, then I think you can go into that early decision application feeling good about it. You could also talk to the institution if you have special circumstances and you just want to talk it through more. You want to do whatever you can up front to do your homework so that you put a good faith effort into feeling like it's affordable for you. So for that reason, if you are in that early decision process and you are admitted, you will never see any other offers from another school to be able to compare and therefore decline.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie. Now, remember, folks, if you have any questions, you can email us. Our email address is collegeplanning@mefa.org. Our phone number is 800-449-MEFA. And our Facebook is MEFA MA, Twitter @MEFA Tweets, and Instagram, once again, MEFA_MA. We have a bench of college guidance experts waiting to answer your question. Now, let's go to my conversation with the program director for Veterans Upward Bound at Suffolk University, Nick Charrette. Nicholas Charrette is an Army veteran with 5 years of service, and he's the program director of the Veterans Upward Bound program at Suffolk University. Welcome back to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
In regular language, what would you say that Veterans Upward Bound does?
Sure. I would say that, we make sure whatever it is that you as the veteran need to be successful in post-secondary education, whether it's academic assistance prior to enrolling or understanding your benefits, we offer that to you as the veteran completely free of charge. We want to make sure that when you enroll in post-secondary education, you have a high chance of success.
Yeah, tell me, what has the past year been like?
Yeah, so over the past year, I think it's been a year of growth for Veterans Upward Bound as a whole. We were able to finally start offering some things in person again, which was nice because while being remote is nice because we were able to reach a lot of different veterans in different parts of the state who otherwise wouldn't have participated because they couldn't make it to downtown Boston. It is also nice to have that in-person option for veterans who truly want to be in a classroom and have that, personalized one-on-one interaction. Additionally, we've got some new and improved programming as well. This past month, actually, we finally implemented our tutoring program, which we were really excited to be able to offer that to veterans, and additionally adding new courses like computer literacy and whatnot. I think this past year we've been able to just continue to better serve our veterans by adding new programs and refining existing ones.
Yeah, you mentioned the tutoring program, and that's something I want to ask you about. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So the tutoring program, it's actually something that, if any Veterans Upward Bound program around the country is authorized to implement as it's allowable under our Department of Education grant. But it was just something that, when I got hired, we weren't doing. And then, as I've, we've started to make sure that we're always, implementing our federal guidelines and our grants the right way, that we looked at and we're like, this is something that, we should definitely try and implement. The way that it works is just if a veteran's interested, we can administer a pre-test assessment using some software called TABE, which stands for Test of Adult Basic Education. And then from there, review the results with our team and the veteran. And then we've got this great partnership with our host university, Suffolk University, where they allow us to send veterans in our program to Suffolk CLAS, which is the Center for Learning and Academic Success. And what's great is that this is, completely free of charge to veterans. Whether the veteran ends up wanting to go to Suffolk or maybe a different school like Bunker Hill Community College, if they're working with us, they have access to tutors at Suffolk University.
And so is this done before a veteran starts to take classes or during classes, or when can they take advantage of this?
So all the services that we offer are available to veterans prior to enrolling. So the idea being, veterans could have access to tutoring at Suffolk prior to enrolling. And then when they've enrolled at the university or institution of their choice, they would have access to tutoring at that institution where they've enrolled. All of the services that we offer are pre-college. So we do, stay in touch with and check up on our veterans who we end up helping enroll at various colleges and universities. However, as far as our services go, it's restricted to prior to a veteran enrolling.
And so I'm curious about how a program like this gets started. Is this something that you hear from veterans themselves, or is it just, where does this come from?
So it was something that, when I first got hired and reviewing our grant, I looked at it and saw it was there, but it was something that felt like a kind of a monster of a task to tackle, especially with, the backdrop of COVID and whatnot. But as I've started to, speak to other veterans who went through the program almost a decade ago when UMass Boston had the Veterans Upward Bound grant, they mentioned tutoring. So it was something that, I kept hearing from veterans, and I decided to look back into it. And we also started to realize that there are definitely some veterans who, would benefit from tutoring more than our traditional refresher courses that usually run 10 weeks. The reason for that is, if we have a veteran who's been out of education for 10, 15, 20 years, it's likely that they would benefit more from like a 10-week refresher course where we truly start, like for math, we'd start with arithmetic and walk them up through pre-algebra. However, if we have, maybe, a veteran who's did one contract in the military, they get out of the military at, 23, 24, they may be a little bit more fresh academically. And with them, it makes more sense to be able to administer the pretest to them, see if they have any academic deficiencies that, that need to be addressed. And then instead of enrolling them in a 10-week course, be able to really target what their need is. So if a veteran takes our math pretest and they generally do well, but maybe, maybe they're not doing too hot in geometry and they need that refresher, it allows us to just pinpoint that exact subject material and hook them up with a tutor so that they don't have to do the whole 10-week course if they're not going to benefit from all the material.
I see. And so how do they take advantage of this? Is this something that, they come to Upward Bound in the first place and then there's an assessment, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's generally how it works, as long as the veteran is eligible for Veterans Upward Bound. So as long as they don't have a bachelor's degree yet, they have anything other than a dishonorable discharge, and they're not currently enrolled in school, then they're going to be eligible for Veterans Upward Bound. And from there, it's just, veteran can reach out, we'll fill out a quick application, have a little admissions meeting, administer a pretest, and then get them, hooked up with some Suffolk University tutors.
That's great. Now, I sort of, we spoke last time, a year ago, and some of this, we had a conversation, not all of it got on the actual show, but we were speaking about your actual educational path, and we've begun to highlight on this show sort of various pathways that people have taken to go to college. And so one of the ways that we wanted to highlight as a pretty popular one is the military. And so I was wondering if you could talk about your college experience, being a service member.
Sure. So my college experience actually started 4 years before I joined the military. Out of high school, I kind of, dabbled with the idea of joining the military. And when I talked to my parents about it, they kind of shut it down pretty quick. They weren't too excited about that. So I ended up enrolling at Newberry College, which is a now defunct school in Brookline, and then transferring to UMass Boston as well. And, I did pretty well. Like, I was a good student. But for me, I kind of felt lost. I kept changing my major. I didn't know what I wanted to study or even do long-term. So for me, I kind of looked at the military as a good opportunity to, pause, so to say, my education and my career ambitions so I could figure out exactly what I wanted to do, and then have the added benefit of, funding the rest of my education. So I ended up joining the military, which again, my parents were not too excited about that. But in the end, it served me incredibly well because I believe I was a pretty good student prior to the military. But post-military, I think I've been an even better student. I was, able to make my education my full-time job just because of the benefits that were afforded to me based on my service. And yeah, I think that wraps up my college experience pretty well.
So I remember, so the financing of your education, was that a part of the reason that you joined the military? It sounds like you wanted to join the military before that, though.
Yeah, so I think for me, so like I said, when I talked to my parents about it and they kind of shut it down, I didn't really have a grasp on what financing your education meant. Student loans was just, that's what you did. And I didn't really understand it too much. Having gone to school for a few years at that point, and then realizing some of the burdens of my student loans, and especially not knowing if I was going to have a suitable career that's going to help me pay them off on the other side. Because I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I think that the financing of, your education as a veteran was kind of the deciding factor for me. Knowing that when you're on active duty, the tuition assistance that you get is great. I finished my bachelor's degree while on active duty, which was awesome. And then knowing when I got out, I'd have the GI Bill, or I'd be eligible for the GI Bill, and also other programs like Chapter 31, Veterans Readiness and Employment. I did my research on these veterans education benefits prior, and it was pretty clear that there's nothing, offered in the civilian world, whether it's scholarships or not, that really matches it, just because you get all of your tuition paid. You get a monthly housing allowance that is based on the zip code of where your school is. So in a place like Boston, it's, a pretty expensive place to live. So the housing stipend goes a long way in making sure that, you're just comfortable, you and your family are comfortable in your home life, so you can truly just focus on your education.
Yeah, and these are things that we talked about the last time you were on the show, when we talked about the GI Bill benefits and things like that. So if anybody's curious, you should go back and listen to your first appearance on the show. I'm curious if you could, what was it like completing your degree on active duty?
Well, it was tough because, the military is a difficult life. There are great benefits, but the reason that the benefits are so nice is because there is a lot of trade-off. But it was something that, in my final 2 years, I had a little bit, I don't want to say cushy is not the word, but it was a little bit less of a demanding job while I was waiting to get out. So I decided to take advantage of tuition assistance. And, it was still tough, doing classes at night after working, 5 12-hour shifts a week, but it was something that I wanted to finish, and I wanted to get out with a bachelor's degree so that, should my I knew I was going to go to school as well, but I'd also like to get out with that bachelor's degree to make myself more marketable. But it was difficult to finish, but I think I had some perspective on how difficult life can be while you're in the military. So looking at something like finishing a bachelor's degree, it put it in perspective and made it a little bit easier to just push through and make sure I finish it.
And if I can ask, why do you feel that you were a better student after the military?
I think that there's a lot of things, that the military instills in you, and whether or not you realize it's happening, it's something that, they just do build into you with things like discipline, and, time management. I know that there's different variations of the saying, but a lot of my leaders always used to say to me in different words, but essentially, if you're 15 minutes early, you're late. So I've always been really good, at least since the military, about making sure that, I'm meeting deadlines, and also just having the discipline to get things done. Like, obviously there's always going to be times where, you feel like you don't have time to study for an exam, or you don't want to write that paper because you want to go see family and friends. But what the military did for me was truly just, I made sure that my education was my number one mission, and there was nothing that could get in the way of it because it was my duty and I was going to get it done. When
you actually did end up joining the military, was the fact that they would pay for your education, did that help you with your parents?
I think it did. I think, when I reapproached them the second time, it was like, you're really going to do this again? But when I kind of talked to them with more of a long-term plan, like, look what I can do. I can get this military experience that's going to, give me some great skills like teamwork and leadership. But also, long-term, I know in the next 4 to 5 years, while I'm completing my contract, I'm going to know what I want to do. I'm going to know where I want to go to school, and it's all going to be paid for. And I think for them, they kind of looked at it more as like, all right, like, you're going to leverage it to the, to your benefit and get a lot out of it.
So if you were, talking to somebody else who was thinking about taking this path, what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, this is a conversation that I feel like I have occasionally in, my personal life, because obviously I work mostly with veterans who've already completed their service. But I think sometimes when people find out, I work in veterans education, they hear about the benefits and like, wow, that sounds nice. And they are incredible benefits, but the life isn't for everyone. It's not an easy life. And like I said prior, the benefits are incredible, but they are great, and the best benefits in the country because the military is hard. There is a trade-off there. What I would say to anyone thinking about joining, whether the education is the factor or not, is if you can use the time in your contract to plan your exit. So if you're planning on just doing one contract and then going to school using your GI Bill, plan ahead, because if you can do that, you can really set yourself up for success. Know what school you want to go, know a few schools that you might want to go to, start to think about careers, degrees, what have you. And learn a little bit about your GI Bill or voc rehab or whatever benefit that you think you may be using beforehand. Because it's just going to set you up for success, and you'll avoid a lot of pitfalls that unfortunately some veterans might find themselves in when they separate from the military. And additionally, I would just say, I kind of alluded to it earlier as well, but take a lot out of your military experience, even if you end up in a job that you didn't really like, kind of how I felt. It was a job I thought I would like and ended up not enjoying. There's still a lot of things to take out of it. You really learn to be a team player, which is valuable wherever you go. And then same thing with leadership. There's so many opportunities in the military that, you can be thrust into leadership 3 to 4 years in, when, a job in the civilian world may take you, way longer than that to be put in that position. So take advantage of all those soft skills that you can, put on your resume and, leverage to your benefit. And I think, if you could do all that, plan to get out whenever you think you're getting out, really plan your exit and take advantage of everything the military has to offer. It'll afford you a nice exit that sets you and your family up for success, in the civilian world.
No, it's great. If folks wanted to get in touch with you or with Veterans Upward Bound, how do they do that?
So they can either, shoot me an email directly. I can put, if you want, I don't know if you want me to put my email in the chat, or they can reach us at 617-725-4139. Additionally, we have a website, VUB for Veterans Upward Bound, VUBMA.com. And whatever works best for the veterans. Some veterans I know want to be in person, so feel free to just drop by at 73 Tremont Street in downtown Boston at Suffolk University's main building. If you'd rather do things over the phone, that's fine. We can do things on Zoom, whatever works best for the veteran. We want to just, make sure that, we really tailor the program to the veterans so that they're taking advantage of everything that we have to offer.
Well, that if you're 15 minutes early, you're late. Now I know why you were the first person on the Zoom to meet us. But it was great to talk to you again, Nick. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks. Well, that about wraps it up for us. I want to thank Nick Charrette for sharing his time with us. I want to thank Adam Hartwell for being here with us. Adam, thank you.
My true and honest pleasure, sir.
And folks, if you liked what you heard today and you want to know more about planning, saving, and paying for college and career readiness, you can follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your shows. And please remember to review us. It helps us to keep doing what we're doing and to get this show out in front of people like you. Julie, thanks so much.
Always fun. Thank you.
And I also want to thank Sean Connolly, our producer, and I want to thank AJ Yee for his assistance in posting the show, as well as Lauren Dans. Once again, my name is Jonathan Hughes, and this has been the MEFA Podcast. Thanks.